The meta is always shifting from season to season, so I'll be ranking every single SMG from garbage to meta for Warzone's Last Stand. Welcome back, I'm Austin, and let's hop right into this tier list by ranking Modern Warfare subs first. So the Striker 45 actually got a stealth buff, where you can actually get an average time to kill of 700 milliseconds up close with 22 meters of range. So you're probably already thinking that should go into viable, but it won't because all 8 of your bullets have to go to the chest, and if you hit one shot to the limbs or the stomach, you're actually going to fall up to 800 milliseconds, which would be one of the slowest TTKs up close for an SMG in Warzone, so it's going to be in below average just because of the potential to be pretty good out to 20 meters. Now the AUG, this is a competitive SMG. If you put on that 5.56 NATO ammo, you get an insane time to kill, the fastest of any Modern Warfare SMG at 630 milliseconds up close, but you're going to have really slow mobility if you use the 60 round mag, or you can have decent mobility with the 30 round mag, but then you have really bad damage per mag, so it can't quite go into meta because of that issue. Now we're going to go over to the Uzi, which I think is going to be a below average weapon as well, just like the Striker, because your TTK up close will be 800 milliseconds unless you switch to 32 round mag, which will then give you very low damage per mag, but then you'll get that 700 millisecond TTK, so it isn't quite good enough to go into viable. The Modern Warfare MP5 is going to go straight into competitive. It has a slightly slower TTK than the AUG, but you're going to have better mobility with damage per mag and really good hip fire. It's just only good to about 8 meters before the damage falls off, so I definitely prefer to use this weapon on Fortune's Keeper Rebirth than Caldera. Now we're going to go to the ISO, one of the worst SMGs in the entire game. We got like a 747 millisecond TTK up close, which is a bottom 5 SMG in Warzone, and there's no reason you should ever be using this weapon. Let's just move on to the MP7, which will go straight into competitive because it is a super versatile SMG with good range, slightly above average time to kill at 693 milliseconds, and almost no recoil, so it's a great sniper support or an SMG to pair with an LMG. And now we're going to go into the P90, which I don't know if I should put into viable or below average. I think I'd put it just barely making into viable because the TTK up close is definitely below average at 726 milliseconds, but it's pretty accurate and easy to aim, as well as your damage per mag is good. I'm going to put it up there just because it's really easy to use. The Fennec, which is very close to being competitive, but I would put it more towards the top end of viable because it has a very good time to kill, a very good fire rate, making it very forgiving if you miss a shot here and there, but your damage per mag is so atrocious that you can't really take out more than a couple players with it, and you're going to be reloading all the time, and your ammo's going to evaporate. The PP19 Bison is basically kind of like the P90, but it has a 10 millisecond worse time to kill, so I'm just going to throw it in below average as a slightly worse P90. Alright, now the CX9 is basically the MP7, but it has a 3 millisecond higher time to kill. I'm still going to throw it in competitive, but just below the MP7. It's still very easy to aim, decent mobility, as well as good range. Alright, and now let's move over to the Cold War SMGs, and I'm going to throw the AK-74U into competitive. I just made a video on this being one of the most underrated weapons in Warzone because you actually have the same time to kill as the marker with a recoil booster at 688 milliseconds, but you have an extra 5 meters of range. The only downside of this weapon is it requires you to hit about half of your shots to the chest in order to get that TTK, but there's almost no recoil on it, so it's very easy to aim out to 20-25 meters, and you can definitely hit chest shots if you're focusing on doing that. Now we're on the Milano, and I'm really sad what they've done to this weapon. This is probably my favorite weapon in Warzone's history, but they've just been nerfing its time to kill across the board over and over again, so I'm still going to throw it in viable because it still has very, very good mobility, very good range, and almost no recoil, but you can't use it as an SMG because right there it would be below average. But with the 726 millisecond TTK up close like the P90, and it's still very easy to use with good damage per mag, if you use it as a sniper support or a long range sub, it's definitely still viable. Now the Cold War MP5, they've definitely buffed it recently, which has made it better. It's either top viable or end of competitive. I'm going to throw it at the end of competitive just because what they did was they made the strafe speed much better, they extended the range by 2 meters, and then they made it where if you get one headshot, the time to kill lowers to 630 milliseconds, which is equivalent to the AUG. But I don't think it's quite as good as these SMGs in front of it in the competitive category, but still very good to use on Fortune's Keeper Rebirth. And now going to the MAC-10, I'm going to throw this straight into viable. It has an average time to kill up close at 702 milliseconds, but we have 15 meters of range, which is just one of the best on SMGs in all of Warzone, and we still have great mobility. The only problem with it is you still have very low damage per mag and takes many bullets to knock someone, like way more than an average sub, so it's very hard to use past duos. Oh, the LC-10. This is the worst SMG in the entire game. I know there was that brief stint where people really liked it and people thought it was meta back in Verdansk, but this is awful. It has the slowest time to kill of any sub up close at 825 milliseconds. Why would you use that? I don't care if it's an absolute beam and has no recoil. Like, time to kill isn't everything on guns, but when it's that low, it can't be anything other than garbage. All right, now we're going on to the Bullfrog, which is basically the PP-19 Bison, but better because it has like about a 12 millisecond better time to kill, which puts it right on par with the P90. Now the KSP-45, I don't think it's as bad as the LC-10 or the ISO, but it's still garbage. We got like a 747 millisecond TTK up close. The burst function is kind of weird on an SMG, and then there's no reason to use it. The Cold War PPSH, we're gonna throw this into viable because it's still decent as a sniper sport. The time to kill up close is slightly below average. It's the same as the P90 at 726 milliseconds, but we have 17 meters of range, which is amazing on a sub, and it's still very easy to aim with a good fire rate. Definitely only use this as a sniper support and not a close range SMG. The Lapa, it used to be so good, was one of my favorite subs, but then they nerfed it into the ground. With the best time to kill barrel, you can only get a 747 millisecond TTK, and then you only have like 8 meters of range. So you have no range, one of the lowest time to kills on a sub. There's no reason to use this gun. It's absolute trash now, and it's very sad to me. The Tech 9, this is on the brink of being competitive, but I'm only gonna throw it at the top of viable. It has a very solid time to kill close of 665 milliseconds, which is gonna beat pretty much every other gun other than the Finnick in this viable category, and it's pretty decent. I just don't see a reason to use it over these subs in competitive. The OTS-9 is basically the MP5, but with less range and less damage per mag, so it's gonna go into viable because it's just a slightly worse Cold War MP5. The nail gun is gonna go into below average. Now the time to kill isn't terrible. It's 696 milliseconds, which is equivalent to the CX-9, but we have less range on it. We have terrible bullet velocity, you can't put a single attachment on it, and you only got 20 rounds in the clip. So because of all those other limiting factors, even though the TTK is fine, it just can't go on anything above below average. And now just a quick note, if you see a pistol on this list and you skip through it, it's gonna represent an SMG that isn't in the images down here, and it's gonna be DLC SMGs that came out after Vanguard was released. So the AM63 is gonna be the UGR, and this is going to go, it's either viable or below average. I'm gonna throw it in below average just because the magazine is really low and you have an average TTK up close. I just don't really see a reason to ever use this weapon. And now let's just move over to the Vanguard SMGs. We're gonna start with the M1928, or as I like to call it, the Tommy gun. And this was also in the same videos that AK-74U is one of the most underrated weapons, and that's why I'm gonna have to put it into competitive. It's only good if you put on the correct attachments where you can get a 649 millisecond TTK, but the range is very limited on it, where you can only use it out to about 14 meters where it's really good. So I only like to use it on Fortune's Keep or Rebirth, but it's actually super competitive if you just build it correctly, which most people don't. If you want to see that video, I will have that linked in the pinned comment down below. Now let's go to the PPSH. We're gonna get to our first meta SMG. This Vanguard PPSH is absolutely BS right now and one of the most overpowered guns in the game. It's accurate, has an insane time to kill, and you have pretty good damage per mag with an insane fire rate. There's no weaknesses to this, arguably the best sub in the game right now. Now we're gonna move on to the Owen gun, which is definitely not used enough anymore. After they nerfed it a bunch, it's still competitive though. You can make it have really good damage per mag with good range and good accuracy, so it's a great sniper support or an SMG to pair with an LMG. Just try the Owen gun out again. The Type 100 is another sub that doesn't get enough love and is definitely competitive. You can have the fastest time to kill in all of Warzone with this thing if you throw on the correct attachments at 544 milliseconds, but then you're stuck with a 36 round mag, so your damage per mag is bad. The recoil is a little high, so it's definitely a higher skill SMG, but the potential of it is so high that it has to go into competitive. For the MP40, it's been nerfed a few times, but I still think this is easily a meta sub, like top 4 in the entire game of Warzone. It still has a 616 millisecond time to kill up close with the correct attachments. It's really easy to use and has really good mobility. There's no reason this shouldn't be one of the most popular subs right now. The Sten is kind of like the Type 100, where it's definitely underutilized and underloved. It's very competitive. You can use the 36 round mag or the 50 round mag and it'll be great. The 50 round mag just annoys me because like when you tag sprint, the ammo clip goes in your face. The fastest mobility of any submachine gun in Warzone, plus one of the best time to kills, and it's still really easy to aim. Now the next 5 weapons are all DLC weapons from Vanguard, so they're all going to be represented by a pistol, so make sure to stick around to make sure you know which pistol represents what. I'm going to start off with the H4 Blixen represented by the Rat, and I think it's only in competitive now. It's still very good and super popular, but the time to kill without a headshot is only 700 milliseconds, which is only average in Warzone, but you still have great damage per mag, really accurate and really good mobility. But if you get one headshot, it drops down to 600 600 milliseconds, which would be one of the fastest in Warzone. But because you need that headshot, that's why I'm throwing it in competitive instead of meta, because it requires slightly more skill, and the average player won't be as good with the Blixen as they would be with the PPSH or the MP40. Now the Clouser is going to represent the Marco, which is another one going into the competitive category, and I would throw it right behind the Blixen, because with the recoil booster, you're going to be at 688 milliseconds, which is slightly faster than the Blixen, but a headshot won't lower the time to kill, so the Blixen has a little bit more upside there. But the Marco has really good range, really good accuracy, and really good damage per mag, so it's still very competitive and great as a sniper support. And now the 1911 is going to represent the Armaguerra, which is going straight into top meta. This is my personal pick for the best SMG in the game, because it has those same qualities that the Marco and Blixen had, but your time to kill just from hitting chest shots is going to be 610 milliseconds up close, which is going to be way better than the two. It's still going to be better at mid and long range with almost no recoil. The Armaguerra is probably the most versatile SMG in the entire game, great as a sniper support or great up close. I just love that weapon. Now the machine pistol is going to represent the well gun, which is definitely still a competitive SMG. You can build out to be super accurate and easy to use with an above average time to kill. Just the damage per mag will be slightly low, which is why it's going to be held out of meta. Now we're going to go to the Raw 225, the latest sub in Warzone, represented by the top rank, which is going to go into the meta category where I throw it in the 4 slot. If you build it out to have the fastest time to kill, it will be at 583 milliseconds, which will beat everything but the Type 100. It's actually pretty insane right now, but the damage per mag is slightly low, so that's why I don't think it's quite as good as the top 3, but it's still great. Overall, that's going to be my SMG tier list, and if you want to see the AR one, I'll have it linked on screen right here. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.